Okay, welcome everybody to our pet talk this evening about grooming. We're so excited to have you all here joining us. My name is Amelia Curtis. I'm the education manager at San Diego Humane Society, and I oversee our youth and adult on-site programs. And even though these lectures are virtual, we still consider them part of our on-site programming. We're so thankful to have you here today. I'm going to share with you a couple of events that we have coming up, and also an adoptable animal that could use a little extra promotion. So we'll call on you to help us promote this animal. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see that? Okay, great. So first, I am sharing information about a rabbit named Charming. And I actually, if you came to our pet talk on Monday, I talked about him too, and we don't always have rabbits in need of sharing information. So this is a Dutch rabbit. He's 3 years old, and he was selected by a staff member to spotlight. And we would love for you to help us spread the word about him, or if maybe you're interested in adopting him. One of the things that Sarah mentioned she loves about him is that he loves to be petted. And so let's see, she says when she suddenly stops petting him, he nudges with his nose for her to continue, and it melts her heart. So that's a little bit about Charming. I will share his information with you in my follow-up email after tonight. And then if everybody, are you able to see my next page as well? Okay, so if everybody wants to check out what events are going on at San Diego Humane Society, you can visit sdhumane.org/events and then scroll down. There's all different types of events here. You can just do a quick check and see what's going on. But community engagement is what I'm going to talk about today. So our next month, we have our clicker training for cats class. This is a class taught by an outside training specialist who does training with cats, and she's going to be focusing on specifically clicker training for grooming and vet care needs. So if you don't know anything about clicker training, there's actually a link to our previous clicker training class with her that just goes over basic clicker training first, and you can check that out right here. I will send information on that too. And then next month, we also have a veterinary lecture about common surgical procedures that may impact your pets at some point. And this will also include a tour of our vet hospital, which is going to be kind of exciting to see a behind the scenes tour. So those are two fun events that are coming up. So I'm going to stop my screen share. I'll just go over some of the housekeeping for this evening. You're welcome to have your camera on or off. Please stay muted throughout the presentation unless you have a question, and then feel free to unmute yourself. If you prefer, you can pop your question into the chat at the bottom of the screen, and I will ask your question for you. Carlie does have a bunch of moments where she will stop and ask for questions throughout the presentation as well. So feel free to do that whenever you like. And then after the presentation today, I will be sending out an email with the recording. So anyone who registered will receive the recording. If there's anything you'd like to watch again or review, you can view the recording. And it will also include a PDF of the PowerPoint. So you'll get to have all that information. If there's any follow-up questions or links that come up during the presentation as well, we can certainly pass that along. So I don't know if anyone has noticed so far, but we do have a special guest this evening, Ryan, who will be interpreting the presentation for us in ASL. And so I will let Ryan introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Ryan. I'm a student from the Palomar College in Interpreting program. I'm going to be interpreting the presentation for people who are deaf or hard of hearing.
Thank you so much. We're really fortunate to have Ryan interpret this lecture this evening. And so when I do share the recording with you, if you know someone that would want to watch, I will be sharing a gallery view, so it will show Ryan's interpretation as well. I also have him spotlighted as well as Carlie for you, so you should be able to see them both. If you want, you could also pin Ryan to your screen if you want to see him. And you can do that by going to the top right corner of his photo, clicking on the little 3 dots there, and then clicking on pin. All right, and so last but not least is the star tonight, Carlie, who is a San Diego Humane Society staff member, and she is going to be talking all about grooming. I'll let her take it away with her expertise in grooming and also what she does at San Diego Humane Society. So thank you so much, Carlie, and we're looking forward so much to your presentation.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you, Ryan, for being here. So let me just get my screen share going here. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, Carlie, we can see it. We're good.
Thank you. All right, so this is a little bit uncomfortable because I can't see all of your faces, but you can see mine. So bear with me while I get used to this. But my name is Carlie Maupin. I am going to be presenting some grooming 101 tips tonight. I am our volunteer experience supervisor here at San Diego Humane Society and also a staff groomer. Prior to coming on board to San Diego Humane Society, I was actually in Arizona with Arizona Humane Society for about 5 years. And when I moved to San Diego, it had always been a dream of mine to become a groomer. So I took a few years off, went to a grooming academy, did grooming in a salon for several years before I realized that my heart truly was in animal welfare and decided to combine 2 of my passions and work at the Humane Society and then also be a staff groomer for any of the dogs that need to look and feel a little bit better. So that could be as simple as cleaning up a face, shaving out a couple of mats, or completely doing a head to toe complete dematting shave down. So we'll talk about some of those tonight and we'll just go ahead and get started. So today's presentation is going to cover ear cleaning, nail trimming. We'll talk about different coat types and the different brushes used on those coat types, grooming tools, some bathing tips, and then some easy introductions to haircuts or dematting at home, because we all know during the pandemic, all of us let our hair go, including our animals, and now it's time to kind of make up for what we've missed. So we'll start with ear cleaning, and I know that oftentimes ear cleaning can be a little bit uncomfortable if you haven't done that before, but I promise it can be very simple. We'll talk about the why of ear cleaning first. So just like humans, earwax, debris can build up and can cause either infections or itchiness if it's not removed. So we like to do that fairly often. Usually about twice a month is probably okay, unless your dog or cat has, plays outside a lot or gets heavy debris. Before you actually do your ear cleaning, you want to make sure that you lift open the flap of that ear and check and make sure that there's no redness, inflammation. If it's painful or hot to the touch when you touch it, definitely talk with your veterinarian prior to doing that ear cleaning, because you don't want to further strike up any inflammation or irritate that. So the supplies that you need is an ear cleaning solution. We want to make sure that it is pet friendly. So not just any old ear cleaning solution, but one specifically for dogs or cats or both. Cotton balls or gauze. Never use Q-tips. Q-tips risk trauma to the eardrum and can push debris in further, which can further cause irritation or infection. So always stick with just cotton balls or gauze. And I always like to have treats or peanut butter on me as well. Peanut butter specifically for dogs, unless your cat likes peanut butter. But having treats or peanut butter can help kind of ease the stress of the situation and cause a distraction when you are trying to do that ear cleaning. So I will even go as far sometimes as to smear peanut butter on my shower wall, and we'll do ear cleaning in the shower so that they can be licking the peanut butter off as you're doing the ear cleaning, and then my pet doesn't even notice that I'm doing that. I also recommend having a towel or some type of blanket that you could use to swaddle your pet. Oftentimes that can help you prevent injury to yourself or your pet, and it also just helps them to feel a little bit more secure. So it's safe and it's comfort all around for everyone. All right, so let's see here. We'll talk about how to do the ear cleaning first, and then we will do a video. Oops, let's go back. So when you are doing your ear cleaning, as you can see in the picture over here of our kitty, she's lifting that ear flap back and looking inside before she goes in to clean. Once you've made sure that there's no redness, irritation, inflammation, then go ahead and pull that ear up. And using a cotton ball or gauze that's been soaked in ear cleaner, go ahead and start just wiping the debris out of that inner part of the ear flap. So all the way to the very tip, and you're not reaching in, you're just doing the inner part of that ear flap. Once you've done that and your cotton ball comes out clean, sometimes you have to do it a few times to get all of the debris out of there. You're going to take just a small amount of your ear cleaner. I like to do just a few drops. Sometimes you'll get direction to do more than just a few drops, but you want to make sure you talk with your veterinarian about that. But just a few drops in the ear, and then you massage the ear, and that's going to help put that ear cleaner deeper into the canal to break up any wax or debris that might be in there. And then you'll just use a cotton ball or a soft towel to clean that up. Oftentimes your pet will go ahead and shake their head to remove that excess fluid, so they kind of do the job for you. And then you'll just gently dry the pet's ear. So we'll go ahead and watch a video on how to do that. Now you'll find that some of my videos show dogs, some of my videos show cats, but for the most part, the process is going to be the same no matter which species you are working on. So we'll go ahead and start with this video here.
How to clean your dog's ears. In this video, we'll talk about ear health and how you can help keep your dog healthy and know that when they misbehave, it's not because they couldn't hear you. Dogs' ears are sensitive organs, and not just because they can hear a wider range of frequencies over farther distances than we do. They can be magnets for dirt and prone to infection, so while the ear is mostly self-cleaning, you may occasionally need to help your furry pal get rid of sand or excess water. Don'ts. If you notice sand or water in your dog's ear, do not use a cotton swab to try to get it out. The inside of a dog's ear is L-shaped, and forcing an object in could not only shove the dirt or sand further in, it could damage the inside of the ear as well. And despite the tips and tricks you might find online, do not use a homemade vinegar mixture to clean your dog's ears. While there's a chance it could work, it's very easy to get proportions wrong. Too much vinegar and you dry out the ear's sensitive skin. Too little and you leave more moisture than was there in the first place. Besides, you might end up creating a new problem instead of treating the old. Do's. Always use vet-approved solutions and drops to treat your dog's ears. As we've said before, they're sensitive, and your dog deserves the right treatment. There are a variety of options out there for dissolving earwax, evaporating liquid, and soothing irritation. Consult with your vet about which is right for your dog. Make sure your dog is comfortable with you handling its ears. If it seems to be in too much pain for head petting, definitely visit your vet. Otherwise, applying ear treatment is easy. 1. Hold your dog's head gently and securely, and quickly deposit the recommended amount of solution. That could be as little as a few drops or, in the case of some wax solutions, a whole earful. 2. Massage the base of the ear from bottom to top so that the passageway opens and closes. Not only does this feel good, this will act a bit like a vacuum and help get the solution around the entire internal structure. This will also help move dirt and wax to the outside part of the ear for easier removal. 3. Let your dog shake the remaining liquid out of its ears on its own. Most solutions are designed to make this easier and evaporate any traces left behind. 4. Take the time to clean and dry the external parts of your dog's ears with a clean gauze pad. This will help prevent re-entry of moisture or dirt. Here are a few quick reminders to take with you. Do not use cotton swabs in your dog's ears. Do not use homemade solutions to clean your dog's ears. Do visit the vet if you notice discharge, fungal growth, pain, head shaking, or ear scratching that doesn't have a visible or known cause. Do use vet-recommended solutions for treating your dog's ears. Do massage your dog's ears to bring out dirt and wax, opening and closing the passageway to spread the treatment evenly. Do allow your dog to shake its ears out. Do clean and dry the external portions of the ear. And give your pup an extra head scritching from us.
All right. So I just love when that basset hound, they have him shake his head in slow motion. It's the best. I love that video. All right. Does anyone have any questions so far on ear cleaning? Amelia, did we have anything come through in the chat?
No questions so far.
Okay, great. Feel free to unmute at any time, you guys. We'll go ahead and move on. So we'll talk about nail trimming. Now I know nail trimming can be a little bit difficult to work yourself up to do. It can be a bit scary, but we're gonna go over some tips and tricks tonight to hopefully put you at ease a little bit and give you the confidence to at least try a nail trimming at home, even if it's just one toe. So the quick is what you most commonly hear about when talking about nail trimming. And the quick is a blood vessel in the dog or cat's nail. Oftentimes, especially with cats, you're going to have clear nails and you can see the pink quick that's inside of there. It gets a little bit more difficult when we have black nails, and in the next slide we'll show you how to identify where the quick is, but it's usually a chalky white ring with a little black dot in the middle, and that's how you know that you're getting closer to the quick. And of course, trimming too short can cause the nail to bleed. So we'll talk about where you should start with trimming. So as you see here, there are two different photos, and this one here that says correct is the correct way to do that. So we're looking at the nail right here. This is what we want to trim, and this red part here is the quick. Now I personally would probably go a little bit further out this way. I wouldn't cut so close to the quick, but you kind of get the idea of identifying through a clear nail, identifying that pink or red part in there. Over here, we've got the incorrect cut line, and this would definitely hurt your pet and definitely cause some bleeding. So we want to avoid that. And then we'll go to this next slide here, and it will actually show you what the nails look like. So this is, your traditional clear nail, and you can see that little pink part inside there. Same with a cat nail. You've got the long hooked part here that's clear, and then you can see the pink quick in there. Now it gets a little bit more difficult when we're looking at these black nails. So you can see around the outside here, you've got the black nail. And then as you work inwards, you have that white chalky ring. And then in the middle is a black dot. And that's when you know that you are about to hit the quick. So we definitely want to avoid getting to that point. I always recommend just cutting a very little bit at a time, especially when you're just getting used to doing nail trimming, and slowly go shorter each time. If only it were this easy and our pets could just do their nails on their own. So let's talk about nail trimming. First and foremost, you always want to start in a quiet area, low foot traffic, no unexpected noises, because nail trimming can be a little bit risky and you don't want your pet to startle and injure either you or themselves. So always start in a quiet area. And just like with ear cleaning, having treats or for dogs, peanut butter or cream cheese spread on the wall is always going to make your job a little bit easier. Also calling in reinforcement, so calling someone else to come in and either handle the pet or be feeding them treats as you get them used to this nail trimming. After you have your quiet area, you have your help, you have your treats, you want to identify the nails that you want to cut and look for the quick in those nails. Here in a minute, we'll watch a video and these next few points will make a little bit more sense, but you're going to hold the paw between your thumb and your forefinger. And when you push on that paw pad, it's naturally going to extend the pet's nails out so that you can see the quick more and you can actually cut the nails. You're only going to cut the very tip of the nails, so just where it starts to hook over, and the more comfortable you get, you'll be able to move a little bit shorter each time, but starting with just the tip of the nail, right before the natural curve of the nail is best. And people always ask, what do I do if I do hit the quick? It won't stop bleeding. You can use cornstarch that you already have at home, or they make something called Quick Stop or styptic powder that you can buy at pet stores. That will help stop the bleeding. You just dip the little nail in there and it stops the bleeding almost immediately. So let's watch a video here on how to do nail trimming. And again, I believe this is a cat nail trim, but it can apply to dogs as well.
I'm Dr. Clayton Greenway with healthcareforpets.com, and we're going to show you how to trim your cat's nails. The first thing I want you to think about is the earlier you start with this, the better accepting your cat's going to be of it. So the first thing you want to do is try to think of it in terms of going through it slowly. You're going to want to try to trim one nail if your cat has never had a nail trim by you before. The first thing I want you to think about is to go slow. You're going to want to trim just one nail on one paw and then reward with treats and stop for the day. Then the next day, try a different nail. By easing into it like this, it's less stressful. Trying to do all the nails in one sitting if your cat is not used to it is going to frustrate it greatly and make it more difficult and potentially give it a bad experience that it's going to remember for future nail trims. Getting to the nails is an important part of this. You don't want to pull an arm all the way out because that tends to make animals draw their arm back in very closely. So what you want to do is you want to put them down in a bit of a hunched position and come over top of them and come in close. You want to make sure that your cat is generally accepting of this and you don't want to take any safety risks. Keep in mind, your cat may like you most of the time, but once you start to do something like this with it, you might be crossing some boundaries and it could bite or scratch you, and you really want to make sure that your safety is protected. Speak to your veterinarian about that or have the nail trims performed by them if that's the case. So first, what I do is we'll lift the paw, and by pushing the paw and squeezing it, you'll notice that the claws come out. And if you look at each nail, it gets very, very narrow and sharp at the end of it. It starts to come in towards the body, and then it starts to widen. The place where you really want to trim the nail is right where it starts to transition from narrow to wide. And you don't want to hit the part that has a very pink tint inside of it because that's the quick and that's where it's going to bleed. So what I do is I bring my nail trimmers very close so that I'm not pulling the arm out to create the need for the cat to pull it back in. I'll squeeze the toes to push the nail out, and then I'll just put my trimmers around the nail and give it a little clip. You'll notice that Marble tried to use her back leg to get my hand away, which is fine. You have to remember it's still going to be a little bit of a struggle. Your cat may not want to do this, but you have to have a firm heart and be confident with it. Because if your cat fights you and you give up, it means that it knows it can win and it's going to try to fight harder the next time. So be careful and cautious, but be firm so that you can accomplish it, and you can accomplish it safely and with a good experience. If you have a cat that's more difficult, you can watch our video about restraining techniques to help you out. You may want to talk to your veterinarian about things you could give your cat to lessen its anxiety or even sedate it if it's absolutely necessary. Remember to always reward them at the end of it so they know that it was a pleasant experience and that in the future they'll be more accepting of it. And good luck trimming your cat's nails.
All right. So if you've ever tried to trim a cat's nails before, you know that this guy was pretty brave doing it on his own. Pets just don't typically like it. We just don't start early enough trimming their nails. And so oftentimes we're trying to kind of backtrack and get them used to it later on in life. So if you still have a puppy or a kitten, even if it's just touching their little paw pads each day, that's going to help create some comfort. So when you do finally go for the nail trimming, they're already familiar with that touch. Again, I always recommend having backup with you, even if it's just to feed treats or could be as in depth of helping either restrain or swaddle the pet so that you can get that done. Questions on nail trimming at all? No?
No questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Amelia. All right, so some quick tips on bathing your pet. Again, always helpful to have assistance, always helpful to have treats. We want to make sure that this is a positive experience for our pets. I always call it the jackpot. When you're finished, give them a whole handful of treats to let them know that you were impressed with them, they did a good job, and that the next time they do that, they're going to get a jackpot again. Only use pet safe shampoos. I can't tell you how many times I had a pet parent come in when I was a groomer and say, yeah, he's just so itchy, you know, he needs some kind of conditioner. And we would ask, well, have you been bathing him at home? Well, yeah, I just used the shampoo I had at home. Was it a pet safe shampoo? Oh no, it was the shampoo that I use for my own hair. We don't want to do that. That's going to strip too much of the natural oils out of the coat. So using a pet safe shampoo is always best. I personally, with my pets at home, realized pretty quickly that it can be really difficult for them to have water on their face or soap on their face. They don't like it. It kind of messes up the whole mojo of the bath. And so I personally prefer to use a wet cloth to clean the face. So I'll dampen it pretty heavily and wipe the face off. And sometimes that's sufficient enough. But let's say we've had a big fun beach day and you know, we've got sand and dirt and all kinds of stuff all over the face. You can get a really damp washcloth and put a little bit of the pet shampoo on there, clean the face that way, and then just slowly clean the face up using a clean, damp, wet cloth. It's just a little bit easier for myself personally, for my pets at home. Some of them don't mind the water being on their face, but I find it's just easier if you're not pouring the water directly over the head or sudsing the face up a whole lot. Always check the water temperature. Just like us, we don't want to take a really hot bath and we don't want to take a cold bath. So just try to find a happy, mild, warm temperature. And always have a towel ready before the bath. I've made this mistake before where I'm giving my pet a bath and we got it done and we had a really, you know, tough time and finally we're finished. And then I realized that I don't have a towel and my dog is trying to claw his way out of the bathtub and I am not at all prepared for that. You end up with a soaking wet bathroom and a not so happy animal. So just make sure you always have that towel ready by the bathtub whenever you are finished with your bath. I always recommend doing the bathing in a small area first, especially if it's the first time that you're bathing your pet. We don't know how they're going to react to water, and especially don't know how they're going to react to having shampoo on their coat. So I always test a small area of the coat to get them used to having the water on the coat. And then I will even just soap up one area and rinse one area and kind of move in small little sections that way, because it would be really painful, not painful, but it would really be bad if you were to get that pet all soaped up and all sudsy, and then they freak out because they're not used to the water, and now you have a soapy dog that you cannot rinse off. So just make sure, if you're not sure how your pet is going to do, start in small areas, preferably with water only first, and then slowly work on doing the whole body.
Carlie, we have a question in the chat.
Sure.
I work with cats in the shelter. Is there a wipe for faces and eyes, especially for our cone cats, that you can recommend? Or do you feel a wet washcloth is best?
I think a wet washcloth is usually easiest. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a best option. I would say definitely go for something that's unscented if you decide to do a pet wipe. A lot of the wipes out there are mainly to make humans feel better and more comfortable because they have the lavender scent or the eucalyptus. And so you want to go with something that's unscented if you do decide to use a wet wipe. But I personally prefer just doing a warm washcloth. Anything else in there, Amelia?
No, that was it.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we're gonna dig into a lot of information here, but bear with me and we'll have some videos that kind of wrap all of this up in a nice bow. But we're going to talk about the different types of coat types. I describe about 6 of them here, but all coat types vary depending on the breed, what's mixed in there, the haircut that they have. So these are just going to be some of the basics on taking care of coat types and the brushes to use to keep them well groomed. So we'll start with our smooth and short coated pets here. This is my dog Moose. He's a Boston Terrier, and you can see that his coat is definitely smooth and short. His fur lies close to the body. I like to use one of these rubber gloves or a rubber curry brush to brush him. And that would be the same for dogs with coat types like Doberman Pinschers, even Labrador Retrievers, Boston Terriers, Boxers, Pitties. So anyone who has that really short fur that lays smooth on the body. Now these rubber curry and rubber brush or rubber glove brush are really great for loosening up any of that extra fur or shedding. And it also kind of grabs the fur as you go through it. So you just kind of work in circular motions, pulling that extra fur out. And then I like the glove to smooth back over to get all of that excess fur off. You can also just use a damp washcloth at the end of brushing to smooth over the back to grab any of that extra fur that you've worked out using that rubber curry brush. Next, we'll talk about medium coated pets. So this is going to apply for dogs or cats. You'll see that it's heavy on the dog side, but this will also apply to any cats. For a medium coat, the fur length is about 1 to 2 inches long. So like this little friend right here. We want to use a pin, slicker, or bristle brush. And in the next slide, we'll show you what those look like. Common medium coated breeds are breeds like Border Collies, German Shepherds, Golden Retrievers. Now, depending on how long the fur has grown out on, say, a Border Collie or a Golden Retriever, you may consider that long coated. But in that general family, like the Shepherds, Goldens is what we're looking at for medium coated. So this is the slicker brush right here, and it will come in different shapes and sizes. This is the one that you see most traditionally. Some of them are also kind of oval shaped like the bristle brush here. And slicker brushes are usually the wire brush, and the teeth are, the wires are pretty close together. Sometimes they have little rubber nubs on the end of each little wire, but this is what's really going to grab that extra fur with your medium, long coated, double coated, and curly coated dogs. And we'll go over those coat types more in just a moment. But I love this slicker brush because it's pretty universal for most coat types. Besides the short coated. This is going to be a little bit too rough, a little bit too pokey for the really short coated pets. So when looking at long coated over here, the fur can reach as far as the floor, especially if you're looking at some of the dog shows. They'll have the fur that just like waves out all over them. So it can go as far as reaching the floor. This is probably the longest that pets at home usually get, and it's a little bit difficult to maintain a coat like this. So we definitely want to make sure we're brushing daily with a pin, slicker, or bristle brush. So one of these two here, and we've got the pin brush on the next slide that we'll show you. But the long coated dogs are usually your Shih Tzus, your Yorkies, your Newfoundlands, even the Pomeranian that you see over here would fall into a long coated category, as well as a double coated category. So that is the long coated. Brushing daily is always ideal, and we'll go over what line brushing and what proper brushing looks like in the next slide. We have our double coated friends over here, and these are our Huskies, Akitas, Pomeranians, the ones that have just this really dense undercoat and then a longer top coat. So I like to show this photo because you can see that we've got the longer top coat here, and when shaved down you can see how dense that really is. Even though we have a really short haircut, you can still see how dense the fur is. So using a pin or slicker brush is always great to get tangles out. And then for de-shedding, my favorite tool is the Furminator. And I'm sure everyone's heard of a Furminator before. I like to talk about Furminators because I think that sometimes they're used incorrectly when not properly trained. So with a Furminator, these are little teeth or blades right here that are going to go in, and they're going to collect all of that dense undercoat that is naturally shedding. So it's going to go in, grab that dense undercoat and bring it out. You want to make sure when you're using a Furminator that you're not brushing excessively with it. You really only need to do small strokes about 5 times per section. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm done with that section, and now move on to the next one. I've seen before where people take the Furminator and they're brushing the whole body several times, and actually it starts to break the fur and starts to create some uneven lines because those are little blades in there. So it's meant to just be done in small sections, pull small sections of fur out at a time. If you do it too excessively, again, it can create some bald spots, some lines. Definitely only use these on double coated and sometimes long coated dogs. They're not meant for your smooth coated or even medium coated dogs. All right, so 2 more different coat types that we're going to talk about today is the curly coated and the wire coated. Now the curly coated are our golden doodles, our poodles, Airedale terriers. We see a lot of oodles and doodles and all kinds of mixes these days that have this kind of curly fur. Sometimes it's soft waves, sometimes it's the really tight curls like with the poodles. And this is another coat type that I recommend brushing daily or at least every other day, because if you go too long, those curls start to tighten up into mats, and then it's much more difficult to brush them out and can be more painful to your pet. So using a slicker brush, like we saw on this last slide here, and a comb is going to be the best way to work with your curly coated dog. Now, when you're using the slicker brush, you're going to go through each layer of the coat, and then you're going to use your Greyhound comb to go back through that coat to see if there are any extra tangles. If your comb gets caught, that means that you're not quite done brushing yet, and you'll go back and use your slicker brush until you work all of those tangles out. With our wire-coated dogs, they're going to have a more rough or wiry top coat and a softer undercoat. So like our Jack Russell Terrier friend here, or Schnauzers also have that rough or wiry type coat. A slicker brush is going to be the best brush for them. And then I always like to have either a spray bottle with just water in it, or you can get a pet safety tangler to spray on the coat. Something about that rough wiry coat holds a lot of static. So as you're brushing them, you're really causing that static to make the fur kind of go a little bit more crazy. So having a spray bottle with some water or some detangler helps keep that coat nice and tidy. Does anyone have any questions before I play this next video here on brushing? All right, we'll go ahead and get started. This is going to show several different types of brushes and the style of line brushing, which is where you pull all of the fur up in one direction and slowly work in a line, working all the way up. And you'll see that technique in this video here.
Carlie, we have some questions in the chat.
Sure, go ahead.
One question is the Furminator quiet?
Yeah, so the Furminator actually isn't a power tool at all. It's just a brush. So it does the job when you're just moving your hand. So it's just like any other brush in how it functions. But the reason that you only want to do it in small little sections is because those are like blades that pull out that extra fur. So it doesn't make any noise at all. It's just a brush, but you just want to make sure that you use it properly.
And then we had two questions about cats. Can you use it on long-haired cats and also short-haired cats?
Yeah, so long hair cats, definitely, yes. Short hair cats, it will work. In my experience, I've got a short hair cat at home and it pulls out a little bit of fur, but what I find works best is using on my short hair cat, using the rubber curry to break up that extra fur in there, and then using the bristle brush, which is this one right here, and that's going to grab any of the extra fur. But yeah, definitely with my long hair cat at home, I will use the Furminator, especially towards the hind end where he can't groom as well, where he tends to get like more dense fur or even mats back there. I'll use the Furminator to avoid that happening. Any other questions on that?
That was all for now.
Okay. And what I really liked about that video we just watched, it showed a variety of tools and how they're used, but line brushing is my go-to for everything. That's how you can guarantee you're getting all of the fur brushed. So you should be able to see the surface of the skin as you're doing that, and you'll be able to pretty quickly identify if there's any matting there, because you'll no longer see the skin, and it'll become more difficult for you to work through that line. And that's why I also like to go back over with the Greyhound comb to catch any tangles that might be left behind. All right. And if we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and move on. Give everyone just a minute. All right, so let's talk about clippers and haircuts.
Carlie, real quick, there's another question about brushing. Do you start at the top or bottom when separating the hair?
I usually start at the bottom. So I'll start at, like, let's say the hind end or the base of the tail, and I'll pull that initial little bit of fur back, and then just slowly work my way all the way to the back of the neck. So I start at the bottom, pull that fur back, and then slowly work my brush all the way until I get to the back of the neck.
And then one more about shampoo. Is the no rinse shampoo made by, I don't know how to say this, WAHL, okay to use regularly?
I prefer not to use any of the waterless shampoos. I'm sure that they're okay. I personally see it as we're putting something on the fur or the skin that isn't coming off, and so eventually that's going to form a little bit of a residue. I think it's okay for in between baths, but I wouldn't fully rely on that for your pet's bathing. But I think for in between, getting any dander off, or if they just need to spruce up and smell a little bit better, I think that the waterless shampoo is okay. But definitely make sure that you are bathing, you know, within a few weeks after that, so it doesn't build up any like a film or anything like that. But I do like the brand Wahl, WAHL, I think it is Wahl, yeah. They make other grooming supplies also, guard combs, clipper blades, things like that.
Okay, I think that's it in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Thank you all. All right, so clippers and haircuts. So these are the clippers that I have here. It's what came with my grooming kit, and I've gotten very comfortable with them. But you will see a big variety of clippers out there. But if you want just a good, reliable, fairly reasonably priced clippers, the Andis Ultra Edge clippers have been my favorite. You really don't need anything too fancy if you're just doing in-between grooms at home. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to pick the right clippers. You just want to get something that is, you know, if you have a large dog, something that's powerful enough to work through that coat. So when we're using our clippers, you always want to lay the clipper blade, so the blade right here, flat on the coat. You never want to go at an angle where it's going to dig into the skin. So you're just going to set the clipper blade flat onto the coat and just slowly work your way down the coat. You always want to move your clippers in the direction that the coat grows. If you go any opposite direction, or you're supposed to go this way and you go down, you're going to create some harsh lines in the haircut that are going to be hard to go back and correct. And if you happen to go in the opposite direction that the coat grows, you could cause razor burn. You will see groomers that do shave in what we call a reverse, and it can be done safely, but I just recommend if you're a beginner and you're just doing in between grooms at home, that you go only the direction that the coat grows. You also want to make sure that you are checking the blade temperature often. I like to use my forearm because that's pretty sensitive skin right there. So I know if my forearm is hot to the touch with that blade, then your pet's skin is at risk of being burnt also. So hot blades can burn your pet's skin. You can use a blade coolant if you'd like, which is this Andis coolant over here. You just face your clippers downward, spray that clipper blade, let it rest for just a few moments, and then you can feel your clipper blade again and see if it's cooled down, and it usually cools down pretty quickly. I always try to make sure that I have a few blades to switch out. So I'll have 2 or 3 10 blades that I'll switch between so that I don't have to pause and do the cool care spray so often. But if you want to do multiple blades, you can, or if you want to keep the cool care, either one of those will work to make sure that you keep the pet safe from any risk of burning. Any questions on that so far? All right. So we will talk a little bit more about blades and guard combs and how to do haircuts. We'll start with talking about 10 blade. 10 blade is going to be the safest blade that you can use, and it's because these teeth are really close together. It's going to be the shortest blade that you can use, but again, if you're a beginner, I always recommend starting with the 10 blade because the longer you go with the coat length, the wider the teeth are going to be, and the higher the risk that a skin is going to get caught in between those blades. So especially if you're just doing an at-home groom and you just need to spot shave a few mats out, I would go with the 10 blade. And we'll watch a quick video on how to apply the 10 blade to your clippers.
Meet your next pillow. Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube? I'll tell you.
To remove the blade, going to depress the blade lock, grab the teeth of a blade, and pull back. To attach the blade, you're going to want to make sure to put the blade latch into the socket of the blade. And you want to make sure that you turn the clipper on when you're putting the blade on the clipper. The reason being is you want the little ears on the blade drive to catch in the socket. Again, turning the clipper on and snapping the blade in place.
All right. And that will vary a little bit depending on the type of clippers that you get or the blades that you get. So I just recommend looking up videos online with your specific clipper style to make sure that you're applying those correctly. Most of them are pretty standard across the board, but some of them may vary a little bit. All right, and next we will talk about guard combs. I personally love guard combs. Some groomers may say it's kind of the lazy groom, but I love them. They're good if you're doing just a trim. They help you keep the coat longer so that you don't have to do a full body haircut, but you can also use them for shorter styles too. They attach over the blade. So this is a guard comb right here, and it attaches over this blade so that you don't have to do a full 10 blade strip of the coat. You can keep the coat a little bit longer and create a nice finish using guard combs. So we will watch a quick video on how to apply the guard comb, and then I'll show you what a haircut looks like using a guard comb because I love it.
I'm Michelle, a home expert from Best Buy, and I'm here to help you find the...
To attach the chrome magnetic attachment comb, you want to make sure that you turn the attachment comb upside down. You're going to put the teeth of the blade into the teeth of the attachment comb, and it snaps on. To remove it, you're going to pull from the back side of the attachment comb and pop it off. The next attachment comb, being steel, is the same style of attachment comb with the magnet. You attach the teeth in, place the attachment comb on, and you can switch the lever on the front of the blade to make sure that it fits nice and snug. To remove the attachment comb, just pop it off from the back side. With the spring loaded, you want to make sure that you have the two teeth on the spring down on the bottom side of your blade. So you're going to insert them underneath the blade, push up on the attachment comb so the teeth actually slide over the teeth of the blade. To remove it, you grab the entire attachment comb, pull towards the teeth of the blade to pop it off.
So I should have started by saying there are several different types of guard combs. I personally prefer the last style that she showed, which are the spring guard combs, because I trust they're going to stay attached a little bit better. I have had experiences using the magnetic guard combs. And if you do hit a tangle or a mat, there have been times where those guard combs have come off. So nothing wrong with them. Just make sure if you decide to use the magnetic guard combs, you fully brush through the coat and make sure there are no tangles, and you should be okay. I personally use these wall guard combs, and they're the spring ones, and those are the ones that I love. We want to make sure when we're doing our haircuts, whether you're doing it with a blade or a guard comb, that you're careful near the armpits, the tuck up, the neck and the throat, the hock, and the ears. Those are all sensitive areas with thinner skin that can be caught easily with the clippers. So definitely be careful when you're working in those areas. And we will show you a video of how to do a haircut with a guard comb. But this will also apply if you decide not to use a guard comb and just use a blade. It will be about the same routine.
I heard about Halo from some of my friends with dogs and decided to give it a try. The program in the app taught me to bond.
I really like using comb attachments, especially in a busy salon, because you get the same length every time, no matter which groomer is doing the dog. Gives you a more consistent trim, keeps your clients happier. I'm using the chrome-plated magnetic #1 comb over a 10 blade. And when you put these on, you want to put them on a little differently than you would your regular snap-ons, which hooked on in the back. These have a magnetic in the back, and so you want to make sure you put the teeth in first, and then it just pops on. Teeth in first, and it just snaps into place. I'm using my steel comb to lift my hair. I'm using my blade. I'm just going to go over the dog. I've made sure this dog was spotlessly clean, properly bathed, properly dried, so that the hair is as straight as possible, because if the hair is really has any knots or tangles, the comb is going to grab and it'll pull, and it might put a hole in the coat, which means you have to go shorter or you have to take extra time to fix. To get it more even, you can just comb it this way and just go over it again. That gives you a nice, smooth, even finish. A lot of dogs they're supposed to have a level top line, and a lot of them are a little higher in the rear than they are in the shoulder. So what you can do is use your comb backwards against just over the hip area, and what that will do is that will shorten it just in that one area. So it's a little longer here and it's shorter there, which helps give us a more level top line.
So the main difference between using a guard comb for a haircut or using a blade is you could see that she was moving pretty quickly with the guard comb, and she can move a little bit more freely in several different directions, though she is trying to stay with the direction that the coat grows. With a blade, you definitely want to move slower and a little bit more consistent and do kind of longer passes than the short, quick ones that she was using. Does anyone have any questions on any of that so far? All right. So we'll go over a few different types of common trims that people go to the groomer for, and we'll go over ways that you can do that at home. So face trim, sanitary trim, and paw trim. These are all just small maintenance things that you can do in between grooms at the salon. So for a face trim, you can use a combination of clippers and grooming shears. I personally, especially when I'm using tools on the face, like to use this style of shears. You can see it has a little bit of a kind of a ball blunt end rather than a really sharp end. In the video we're going to watch, she uses just regular shears. I definitely recommend using something that's blunt like this, especially if you're just now getting used to doing face trims. And just keep in mind, just because we're talking about this today doesn't mean that that's something that you'll be expected to do at home, because working around the face with sharp tools can be a little bit nerve-wracking. So take some tips from here. If you're feeling confident, if your pet is regularly groomed at a salon, they're probably going to be used to this, but I wouldn't take shears and clippers to a pet who you're unknown if they've ever had a haircut before. So let's watch some face trimming here.
My first step in creating expression on this little mixed breed is I'm taking my pulse ion and I have it set on a 15 blade length, and using the corner of the blade, I'm just going to go in and scoop out just in front of his eyes, the inside corner of his eyes, just to get rid of that longer hair so it's not poking him. And then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to scoop out the stop area, which is the area between the two eyes. I'm not clipping down the nose. You want to leave some hair there to keep the expression soft. But just clipping that one little area out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm taking my curved scissors and my steel comb. I'm going to comb this top knot, the head hair, all the way back. Take a very small layer just over the eyes. With my curved scissors facing away and towards the eye, I'm going to start just a tiny bit behind the corner of the eye. On both sides. And I've got the blades of my shears at about a 45-degree angle. The hair in the stop area between the two eyes, I'm going to turn my curved scissors back around so they're going this way and trim that area. So I almost have a serpentine type look. It comes in over the eye, comes out between the eyes, and it goes in again over the eyes. Then I'm going to pull down another layer, very small layers, and I'm just going to cut it so it goes this way with my curves. Just following the line from that initial cut. And then I'm just going to keep pulling down little layers, following that line, because I can see it through the layer. Until I get, just maybe about halfway up to the top of the head. This would be the last layer. And then when I comb that up, we've got this cute little face, just enough hair over the top of his eyes to keep his expression really soft and make him look really cute. Now you can take this shorter. The angle you hold the blades of your shears will take it longer or shorter. So if you want to take it a little shorter, you just pull the angle of the shears up more. And there's our little mixed breed.
That little dog is just too cute. I love. So even myself personally, I still struggle with face trims on dogs who have not had that before. So definitely make sure that your pet is comfortable before you take any tools to the face. Sometimes I like to take, we'll use a pen for example, but I like to take tools, and before actually even using them, I'll just run them on the pet's face and under the eyes to see if they're going to allow that before I actually take the shears and start cutting. Clippers especially can be difficult to use on the face of a dog who has not been used to regular grooming. On the face trim, when she started using the shears and she brushed that first little layer down, really doing that first layer, even the second layer that she did, will clear up the visor and the eyes a little bit. So you don't even need to go as in depth of going all the way to the middle of the top of the head. If you just get those first 2 steps of cleaning out the visor that goes over the face, that oftentimes will get you through until your next groom. You can also do the same where she took the clippers and scooped out the eye corners. Instead of using the clippers, if those are too loud and they vibrate, you can use shears. So you would just lift up the hair that's at those little eye corners there, and then take your shears in and just trim those. Never direct them towards the eyes. You always want to go kind of down the face or down the nose. Any questions on face trimming?
There was one question. Someone just commented, she looks as if she's really grabbing and holding the dog's mouth rather hard. Is that how it's usually done?
So I thought that too when I saw the video. I will say that it would be preferred if she's just grabbing just the chin hair right there. But we have to keep in mind too that we're using sharp tools and we want to make sure that we're being safe. And so sometimes doing a firm grab over the muzzle is what's necessary to get the face trim done. Never put a lot of pressure. Definitely don't be pulling on the fur at all, but sometimes a more firm hold is actually going to keep everyone safe all around. But again, if you're trying to do any type of holding or grabbing and your pet's not comfortable with it, stop right there. I could tell in that video that dog had been regularly groomed and was kind of used to the manipulation of the face. But I agree, that was probably, just a little bit too much grabbing in different areas. But I would say that sometimes that is what's necessary to get that face cleaned up.
And then one more, at what age should you begin to trim? This person has Huskies.
So Huskies won't necessarily need a face trim, but if you want to do kind of like a feather trim, which is usually like the little butt feathers or maybe the tail, any dog I would say start grooming at about 8 weeks old. That's usually the soonest that a groomer will take a dog in. And all they're going to do at first is just do the face, the sanitary trim, and the paw trim. Now with Huskies or any double coated dogs, I do not at all recommend doing any type of shave down haircuts on them. The coat of a double coated dog is actually used to regulate their body temperature. So it helps keep them cool, and then it helps keep them warm. So when you shave that coat down, you've now kind of messed with how they would normally control their body temperature. And then the coat never grows in quite the way that it initially was. So I recommend, instead of doing any type of haircut on a double coated dog, to do a Furminator bath. So we talked about the Furminator tool for brushing. Furminator brand also makes a shampoo and conditioner, and you'd be really surprised how much fur actually comes out when you use that shampoo and conditioner. I remember one day we did Husky Day at my salon, and I walked in the back and there was just fur flying everywhere because this Furminator shampoo truly does just pull out all of that extra shedding. So with Husky, I would definitely say you could do like the butt feathers and the tail, do a trim, and then do a Furminator shampoo and conditioner and brushing for that. Anything else, Amelia?
That was it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you all for your questions. All right, so we'll talk about the sanitary trim. This is one that, especially in between grooms, if your pet is soiled at all, this is one that you can do to help clean up until you can get into your grooming appointment. So for a sanitary trim, you're going to use clippers. You'll see in the video here, this is around the booty area. So we always want to trim away from the anus, never go over it because you do risk injury. It's very sensitive right there. And I've seen before where dogs or cats sit down in the middle of a sanitary trim and sit on the clippers, and you can cause some damage. So we'll show you a sanitary trim in this video here.
doing my sanitary, I start by clipping around the outside of the rectum. I've got my SMC2 on a low speed. That means my blade won't heat up so fast. And all I'm going to do is, using the edge of the blade at an angle, clip just the hairs around the outside of the rectum. You never want to clip directly over the top of it because you can nick it. You don't want to nick it. It makes the dog very uncomfortable. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in. Now, this is a boy dog. If it was a female, well, we're doing the same thing regardless. You always want to clip towards the center. The female, it has the vulva. You come from the outside towards the center. If the dog has testicles, you must want to be careful, so you get in there and just clip over the top of them to get any stray hairs. Once you get that cleaned out, you always want to clip towards it. It's just the safest. The neuter dogs may have a little flap of skin. You want to make sure you're clipping towards it so it doesn't get caught in the teeth of the blade. We're going to turn our clipper around. We're going to lift our dog so we can see his belly. And since he's a boy, we're clipping towards the penis, always towards the tip. That, again, it's just a safety issue. If he was a taller dog, we could set him on the table, lift a leg, and come in from the sides. The girl dogs, we would just take 1 or 2 swipes up the center of the belly.
All right, so sanitary trim isn't the most fun thing, but it can definitely make you feel a little bit more comfortable and, you know, allowing your pet in the bed or on the couch, because sometimes they do get a little bit messy, so sanitary trim is necessary. Any questions on sanitary trims? All right, so we'll talk about paw trimming. Doing a paw trim is usually just on the underside of the paw pads. Sometimes people will do the top little, what we call Grinch feet, the little toe fuzzies that come up between the toes. But today we're just...
Sorry, there was one question about sanitary, if we could go back.
Yeah, sure.
Is the technique the same for cats for that?
So yes, for the anus, I've never seen a sanitary trim under the belly on a cat. But yes, around the anus there, you would just take your clippers and move outward and around and just trim the fur right around there.
And then there's another question about, do groomers prep animals for surgery, or do people do that? People like veterinarians, I imagine, or vet staff.
Yeah, so it's usually veterinary staff, especially at the shelter here. We don't have groomers on staff here who are specifically doing grooming all day long. So when they go in for spay or neuter surgery, it's typically the veterinary staff that takes care of that.
And then just to, because it didn't specify that, just to maybe add, like if someone was bringing their pet in for a surgery, they wouldn't be, or at any veterinarian, they wouldn't be expected to prep.
No. And that, yeah, no, they don't worry about doing any type of prep work, especially when it comes to anything regarding surgery. The veterinarians are going to have to get a much closer cut than what you would be able to do at home. They usually use a blade that's even shorter than a 10 blade, so like a 30 or a 40 blade, and oftentimes they go in reverse. So if you're taking your pet in for any type of veterinary services, please don't feel that you are expected to do any type of sanitary trim or any prep trimming.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So paw trimming, we're talking about the fuzzies that are on the paw pads. It can help keep the paws clean. So especially if you're going on walks in the rain, or, you know, if you're in snow somewhere, it can help keep the paws a little bit more clean. It can also give pet traction. So if you've got a senior animal who's maybe not so good on their feet and their feet tend to slide out a little bit, shaving the paws can give them a little bit more traction. Or I know my cat at home, he's a long hair cat and he gets really long toe fuzzies. And so if we were to do a paw trim on him, it would help him give a little bit more traction when he's running away from my dog who is only trying to play with him. So definitely a paw trim can help for anyone who just needs a little bit more traction on, say, like hardwood floors or tile floors. And all we're going to be doing is skimming the blade over the paw pads to trim that extra fur off using a 10 blade. And we've got a quick video to show that.
I heard about Halo from some of my friends with dogs and decided to give it a try. The program in the app taught me to bond.
Hello, today I'm going to show you how I shave the pads on a mixed breed. It's basically done the same way on most breeds. I use a number 10 blade. You can use, shorter blades, closer blades if you want, but I use 10 blades on the pet dogs just to prevent any nicking or redness in the skin. So you want to make sure there's no lumps or bumps inside there. Sometimes the senior dogs have some growths. So you don't want to clip them off. So just pick up the dog in a natural position. Don't pull it out or hurt the dog. So this is comfortable for her. She's even holding it up. So it's comfortable. So I use my thumb. I put my thumb on the top of the foot here, and my other fingers are underneath. So I use my index finger and third finger to hold the pad on the other side. And if you notice, if you just move your fingers around, it moves the toes around. So I'm going to use it number 10, and I just scoop out the hair. So you just do one side like this, and stay, baby, and then come down to get the top hair off. So usually this process only takes like literally a few seconds. It just takes longer now because I'm explaining myself. And just get the hair between the toes there. So you don't want to go too far up these toes, because when you put the foot down, the hair will be all cut and it'll ruin the shape. So usually on the top pad here, it's okay. I know you want to sit. Wait, 1 second. We're almost done, honey. I just clip up a touch here, not much. And some dogs have ticklish feet, so just do the best you can. And you can also use scissors. Hey, baby, you want to sit? Okay, you can sit now. You want to sit? No?
All right. So at the last moment there, she said something about you can also use scissors. I absolutely would not use scissors or shears on the paw pad because they could step down on those and you could catch the paw pad or skin in there. So I would definitely just stick with a 10 blade for any type of paw trimming. Have any questions come through, Amelia?
Not so far.
Okay, we'll give it just another second and we can always go back if you all have questions. All right, so let's talk about some dematting. So I've got a few different pictures here. This first one you see is on a cat. And you can see that the fur right here doesn't look as matted, but as we get kind of further down the back, we definitely see some matting there. You're typically going to see matting with cats who are really long fur, but even then, they usually can groom themselves to where they don't get tangles and mats. So if you have a cat who's getting heavy matting, it probably means that they're not grooming themselves, and that could be an underlying health concern. So if you're seeing excessive matting, especially on your cat, definitely talk with your veterinarian and see if they're concerned at all, because cats are usually pretty good about keeping themselves groomed. So if we get to this point, I believe that there's probably something underlying going on. This here is a dog who is heavily matted. You can see that the top coat right here actually looks kind of fluffy and not so tangled. And I could guess that this pet parent was probably just brushing the top coat, not realizing that the bottom is still tangled or matted. And so that's why the line brushing that we talked about earlier is really important, pulling that fur back, brushing through it, and making sure you're getting all the way down to the skin. I can't tell you how many times I had pet parents come in and they were upset that we had to do a full shave down, but ultimately there's just no humane way to try to brush out these mats. Think about if you have a tangle in your hair and someone just keeps trying to brush it and it's not coming out, that's going to be pretty painful. So when you get to this point, we do have to do a full shave down. I know that most of our pets at home, because you guys love animals, are probably keeping up a little bit better than this. So this mat right here is what you're going to see more common, is just a kind of an isolated mat, oftentimes behind the ear or maybe the armpit area or even the hind end. So these are mats that we can just spot shave out, luckily. Okay, so for dematting, just keep in mind, tangles can be brushed out, but mats cannot. So once they get to the point of being mats, that's where we're going to have to start spot shaving. Again, it's just not fair for our pets to have to go through having a mat brush that just isn't going to brush out. So never pull on the mats with the brush. Most of them can be spot shaved out with a number 10 blade. Never use a wide tooth blade or a guard comb for shaving out mats. That mat is going to get caught in those wider teeth or in that guard comb, and then could pull the skin into the teeth of the blade or the guard comb with it. Because the mat is so close to the skin, it's really difficult to get up under there unless you're using a 10 blade with the really fine tooth or teeth on them. You want to find an opening in the coat to start. So you can't take a mat and just go straight into it. You'll try to find some fur maybe around that mat that is not matted and trying to sneak your blade up under there to get the mat out. Again, don't try to pull through the mat with your clippers. You're going to use really small strokes to loosen that mat up to be able to get your clippers all the way through. Never, ever, ever use scissors to cut mats out. You have a really high risk of cutting the skin. When the fur mats, it does mat really close to the skin. So even if you're pulling the mat up in hopes of trimming it, when you pull that mat up, you're also pulling the skin up. And so we definitely don't want to use any types of scissors or shears. Also make sure if your pet has any matting that you do not wet or bathe the mats. Sometimes people think, oh, I'll put my matted dog in the shower and I'll give it some conditioner and that will help loosen the mats up. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. It's going to grab more hair and cause those mats to tighten up even more. So never wet or bathe a dog with mats. You'll want to spot shave first before they actually get their bath. So just as a reminder, behind the ears, armpits, the chest and the neck where the pet's collar is, and then the hind end where it might be a little bit more difficult for them to groom themselves. So as you're brushing your pet, just make sure that you're checking those areas more carefully with your greyhound comb to make sure that you're getting all of the tangles out. Any questions on dematting or clippering or anything that we've gone over so far? All right.
We have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Have you groomed dogs or cats who are sensitive or didn't want to be groomed? Any tips for this?
Yes, I have many a times. So what I like to do is so think about where kind of your priority is. So if your priority is dematting, don't put your pet through the stress of brushing their entire body and doing ears and nails before. Go in and just spot shave that mat right away. So try to think about what your priority is and start with that, because all of the other things that we've talked about are going to add extra stress. And so by the time you get to the thing that's the priority, it's probably likely that you're not going to be able to do that. Also, always ask for help. Treats, peanut butter, cream cheese on the wall always helps. Anytime you're sitting on the couch at home with your pet, even if you don't have the intention of grooming them in that moment, take a pen, take a pair of shears, and again, just rub it on their face or tickle their little toes, or just brush a little bit at a time so they get used to the sensation of brushing. So don't try to do it all at once. Pick what your priority is, and then just keep in mind that being consistent at home is definitely the key to this. You're not going to be able to do all of this at once, but just picking your priority, starting slow, and then kind of sneaking in, you know, ways to get them used to the process of things. Any other questions? All right. So again, just remember to be patient, figure out what your priorities are and focus on that. Never push your pet just to get the job done. If you push it one time, you may totally break the trust between you and the pet and that process. So never push it. Use lots of treats. If you see anything that you feel is unusual or you're not comfortable with, always seek vet advice. Even if you just call them up on the phone from home, they may be able to give you a quick yes or no on how to proceed with some of these grooming tips and tools. Stay consistent. So don't just bathe them once and then don't bathe them again for 6 months. Try to stay consistent so that each time you bathe them, it gets a little bit better. Same with brushing or nail trimming. Do just a little bit each week so that you make sure you stay consistent and can continue to build that respect and trust between you and your pet. And always ask for help. Ask someone else for help. Have a friend or family member come over. If you just can't get the job done, talk with your groomer, talk with your veterinarian. There may be some other options or tips that they have, but never push it to the point where you're going to find yourself hurt or find your pet hurt. And now you're ready to give your pet an at-home spa day. So we went over ear cleaning, nail trimming, coat types, grooming tools, bathing and brushing, haircuts and dematting. I know we went through a lot of information today, and I could probably talk even more about a lot of all of this. So please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name's Carlie Maupin, and this is my contact info down here. And I'm always happy to talk about all things grooming and all things animals. Do we have anything else? Any other questions, Amelia, or anyone who wants to unmute?
We did have one in the chat, and then we'll see if anyone wants to unmute for questions. Is it okay to just put your dog, who's a boxer, in the tub with water and no shampoo, but just a water bath?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I wouldn't do it too often because it will start to strip some of the oils, but you can use, you can just take a little bit of coconut oil after and smooth that down the coat as long as there's no allergies there. But yeah, I think doing a water bath is better than no bath at all. You just want to make sure if you notice that the skin is getting dry, or there's some dandruff there, that maybe you scale back a little bit and wait a little bit before doing your next bath. Anyone else have any questions?
We had someone saying thank you from CJ Keith.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hope to see you around SDHS.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned a lot. That was incredible.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. I saw some of my volunteers on here, so it's really good to see you all or see your names. I'm really glad you all got to attend tonight.
If you want to stop your screen share, maybe if anyone has questions, they can unmute or show their camera too. If you want to ask a question to Carlie in person, you're welcome to do that.
All right. Well, if no one has any questions, I really appreciate you all taking the time to learn more tonight. And please reach out to me if you have any questions at all.
All right, well, thank you everybody for attending, and we will send out a follow-up email with the recording as well as the slides for you to review. And then Carlie did include her contact info if you wanted to contact her with follow-up questions. Thank you guys so much for attending, and I'm going to stop the recording.